move against the will of those that would do us wrong. We move against the will of those that would do us wrong. There is no space between the lines of day and night. I wonder why there is no space between the lines. No space between the lines of day and night. I wonder why there is no space between the lines of day and night. I wonder why.
Hello and welcome to Darkcity Radio. You're listening to the I Am Show, and it's me again, Sarah, your host. And for all of you that don't know, my show is on once a week, and it's basically about taking responsibility for your emotions and your feelings and working through them and working through what you're putting out there, because all our emotions and everything that we're feeling ricochets throughout our lives and our environment. And like we've all noticed, if you're angry, the whole air and the environment and everything changes. So this is just, it's about taking more responsibility of what you're putting out there and not being afraid to express your feelings and to experience any emotions or feelings. And also learning to understand emotions and feelings so that you're not scared of them, or you're not pushing certain emotions and feelings away or burying them and not dealing with what you're experiencing. Because I always like to personally explain emotions like a river, and it's like, because they're energies, emotions are energies and we're energies, so it's important to keep these energies flowing and to not let them all become stuck and stagnant within you or buried or anything like that, because otherwise they manifest themselves into your physical body in different ways, and it's really not good for you. And it means as well that you react from your emotions rather than reacting from your true self. So you, instead of making decisions from a good space, you end up making them from an angry space or a bitter space, or just not ending up making the wrong kind of decisions in your life because you're stuck in certain modes. And so basically this is what I work on, and so it's always good to hear other people's stories and how they deal with things that they go through and experience in their lives, and that's why it's always good to have people come on the show. Today we've got Bob, we've got Lee, we've got Nerisse, and we've got Miles from Divergent History on today to tell us their experiences on vulnerability, because that's our topic for today. So if you do want to phone in, it's Bob's Backyard Skype, Darkcity Radio, and the phone number is 0161 2980 298, and you have to put +44 in front of it, or if you're abroad or something else, you'll have to look up the code. I'm not quite sure on the codes. Does anyone else know what the codes are? It just depends where you're calling from, doesn't it? 0044, I got it right. Or +44, and it was, yeah, or just Skype him. It's always great to hear from people. Okay, so this week the topic is vulnerability, and I think this is quite a big topic, really. Vulnerability is one of them sort of emotions and feelings that, there's different types of vulnerability. Let's just start with this, yeah. There's different types of vulnerability. There's physical vulnerability, which I'm not really going to be covering today. I'm not going to be, where you live can make you more vulnerable to floods or anything like that. I'm not really going to be covering that. There's emotional vulnerability, which is obviously what I'm going to be covering. And there's also vulnerability for your health. And your health is, well, they're all sort of tied into each other, really. There always is, because anything that affects you emotionally affects your decision making, so it can affect you physically, or anything that affects you emotionally can affect your health, like I was saying before, like with blocked energies and being stagnant and not letting your energies flow through your system properly. Can build up and cause blocks and cause aches and pains. It can cause anxiety. It can cause depression. If you're not dealing with all your emotions, and these can manifest as disease. So we're all vulnerable. We're all physically vulnerable. We're all physically vulnerable to the same kind of degree. You know, if I came up to you and shot you in the head, you'd probably die. Not necessarily, but we're all vulnerable that way. And we're all got vulnerabilities, well, most of us have got vulnerabilities on an emotional level. When I was looking about vulnerabilities on the internet, there's a woman called, and I'm not going to be able to say her first name properly, but it's Brenny or something. It's spelled B-R-E-N, and then E with one of those funny things floating above it, Brown. And she's done she seems to be an expert really on vulnerability. And I watched her TED video, which was good, and that's called The Power of Vulnerability. And she's also written a book called Daring Greatly, which I haven't read and I hadn't even heard about until I started looking up vulnerability. I hadn't even heard of her, but she seems to be the expert in this field. And she says that there are three main myths. That's what that are about vulnerability. Yeah, so these are the myths about vulnerability, and I'm just going to basically read what she says, so you'll have to bear with me because I am dyslexic and I do struggle a bit with reading, so I might sound a bit funny. But anyway, according to Brown, vulnerability is a weakness, right? These are myths, remember? According to Brown, the funny thing about vulnerability is that we love it when others are open and honest with us. But when it comes the time for us to share, we sort of freak out. Suddenly our vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Brown describes vulnerability as the core of all emotions. To feel is to be vulnerable, she says. So when we consider vulnerability to be a weakness, we consider feeling one's emotions to be so. Two, she says, yeah, I hope you understood that sentence. But being vulnerable connects us with others. It opens us up to love, joy, creativity, and empathy, she says. Plus, when we look at what makes up vulnerability, we quickly start to see the opposite of weak. In the book, Brown shares the various responses she's received after asking her research participants to finish this sentence. Vulnerability is... And these are just some of the replies she received, like starting up my own business, calling a friend whose child has passed away, trying something new, getting pregnant after having 3 miscarriages, admitting I'm afraid, and having faith. As Brown says, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. And number 2 of the myths is some of us don't experience vulnerability. She says this is also a myth. Many people have told Brown that they simply don't do vulnerability, but actually everybody does vulnerability. Life is vulnerable, Brown writes. Being vulnerable isn't the choice we have to make, she says. Rather, the choice is how we respond when the elements of vulnerability greet us: uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Many of us respond by avoiding vulnerability, but when we do, Brown writes, we typically turn the behaviour that don't align with who we want to be. For instance, one of the ways we shield ourselves from vulnerability is what Brown calls foreboding joy. When things are going well in our life, have you felt a pang of horror that something bad will happen? For instance, you just got promotion at work, you're excited and happy, but then, bam, a wave of, holy crap, I'm going to do something to screw this up, washes over. Foreboding joy, washes over you. Or is it, oh no, what if this company goes bankrupt? That's foreboding joy. Brown describes it as a paradoxical dread that clamps down on a momentary joyfulness. And then also in the book, she describes lots of ways that people shield ourselves, and I'll go into that a bit more in a bit once I've said her bit. Vulnerability means, this is the third one, vulnerability means spilling your secrets. Some of us automatically bulk. I don't know how to say that word. It's B-A-L-K, bulk at vulnerability.
Bulk.
What is it?
Bulk.
And what
like
does it
I
mean?
bulk at a disgusting horror movie because it just disgusts me. It's like a knee-jerk reaction where you see something really effed up and you're just like, ugh! That's to bulk at something.
Okay, thank you. Okay, some of us automatically balk at vulnerability because we assume that being vulnerable means wearing our secrets on our sleeves. We assume that being vulnerable means spilling our hearts to strangers, and as Brown puts it, letting it all hang out. But vulnerability, it embraces boundaries and trust, she says. Vulnerability is about sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. Being vulnerable takes courage. And it's worth it. It's worth it to be ourselves, to connect to others. I worry when I put my writing and thereby myself out into the world. What will readers think? Is that a stupid sentence? No, I don't think so. Okay, maybe. Well, will they like the article? Will they hate it? Hate me? But for me, to stop writing and sharing my writing would mean losing my pivotal part of myself. So I'll continue to put my words and my ideas out into the world. And that's what some of the things about myths of vulnerability in which she says. And it is important to put yourselves out there, really, isn't it? You know, to feel vulnerable is one of the emotions that we all experience. It's not something that just you go through. It's something that we all really do experience, and so it's something that we need to learn to embrace, like she says, like all of our feelings and emotions. The more sort of negativity or negative feelings that you put on any emotional, the harder it is to experience it, and the harder it is to actually naturally feel it. And every emotion should just be felt and expressed for what it is, and then let go of. Like I said, you need to keep your energies and your emotions flowing through your body. And I totally agree with her when she says it's not a weakness. It takes great strength to feel vulnerable and still push forward. And it really does, to feel that vulnerability, and that is kind of a weak feeling that you feel, though, isn't it? It is a kind of a fearful feeling to feel vulnerable. You know, you feel small, you feel a bit scared, and to actually push your way forward through those feelings is actually an amazing experience. It doesn't matter on the end result, really, but to just be able to push yourself through that is really good for your self-esteem, I'd say. I've always found it good for my self-esteem. You know, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what other people think of you. All that matters is what you think of yourself, really, and how you feel about yourself. And if you work your way through vulnerability, you will feel better about yourself, and the more you do it, the stronger you're going to feel. It's good to put yourself forward and put yourself out there, and take risks. And different people do different and feel vulnerable about different things. Like what one person might feel vulnerable about, another person might just accept and take in their stride and not actually feel vulnerable about it at all. It is a personal thing with a lot of these emotions as to how you react to situations you end up in your life. Like I've said, it's no good. There's no good. You can't avoid it, really. If you do it, to me, you're not getting out your comfort zone. You're not pushing yourself forward. You're not exploring each other or those connections that you can make. You know, and that's important, really, in wanting to work towards everyone working together. You know, it's important to get yourself out there and to make these connections with fellow human beings. And it's important for us all to feel connected and to all feel accepted and able to express ourselves and express our vulnerabilities. When she comes to talking about those pangs of horror, that you experience when everything's going well in your life, that vulnerability of something's going to go wrong, I've actually experienced that quite a lot, and I still do to this day. I recognise that I do that. You know, things are going really well, and it's like, what's going to happen now? Everything's going too well, something's going to go wrong. You know, that's another feeling of vulnerability that we all feel, and the way I deal with these things is just by thinking, well, this is something I've experienced lots of times, and what can really go wrong? You know what I mean? As long as I'm still breathing and I'm still alive, I'm able to change. So
that, and what can you really do about it? If something's going to go wrong, you know, it might not be within your power to prevent it. So just sort of accept that fact of life.
Yeah, and you definitely wouldn't want the fear of the fact that something is going to go wrong to stop you from going forward either.
Right, you would be paralyzed in fear.
Yeah, It wouldn't be. It's not a good place to be. We've all been there, like felt vulnerable and thought, "Oh, shall I do this? Shall I go? Shall I not?" And we've all at one point said, "I can't do it." And then there's that feeling that you're left with afterwards, of that you've really let yourself down, and that you're not very strong as a person. You know, it's not worth to feel that way. I don't think, just because you don't know what the future holds. No one knows what the future holds. And when you learn about emotions and you learn about feelings, and you learn to see them more as a flow of energy, and not to cling on to them, and not to cling on to these experiences that you go through that aren't very nice and that you don't really want to be clinging on to. You know, it actually becomes easier to deal with things if they do go wrong, so to say. Because is that somebody else talking, wanting to say something? Go on, Miles.
Well, I was going to say, then you, if you sort of expect everything to go wrong, you can only be pleasantly surprised if that's your expectation. If you expect everything to go wrong and it doesn't, you know, you have nowhere to go but up positively in your response to the situation.
Well, yeah, but it's not a very nice place to be in the first place. And when you expect things to go wrong, a lot of the time they do, because I know if I think things are going to go wrong, I make more mistakes. I make more of the wrong decisions. I make decisions based on fear rather than decisions based on facts or truth or anything like that. You know, so it's best not to think about things as could go wrong.
Or just be just be content with the fact that you don't have complete power over your life and things could go wrong. Don't dwell on it, but know it and just accept it.
Yeah, shit happens, doesn't it? That's
Exactly.
one of my favourite sayings. Shit happens and fuck it.
Yeah.
I love them too. Anyway, but yeah, so you know, it's normal to feel vulnerable. You shouldn't let it prevent you from moving further and forward on with your life. You know, and if things go wrong, sometimes if things don't go quite as you planned, sometimes it works out for the better. And you know, it's just, you need, like I was talking about last week, I was talking about change. You need to change your perspective as to what is going wrong as well. And then she also touched on strategies to cover up and, you know, to shield yourself. And people try their best to dampen their emotions. They don't, you know, like I said, vulnerability is seen as a weakness. When I was looking it up on the internet and trying to learn as much as I can from different people's perspectives instead of just purely my own, you know, a lot of people saw vulnerability as just a really vulnerable and not very nice place to be, you know, where you just completely expose yourself to others and then you get attacked. And that's not what vulnerability is, really. It's the fear of the unknown, really. It's if you feel vulnerable, it doesn't mean that you're going to get attacked. And if you open yourself up and talk to and communicate with people, it doesn't mean that you're going to get attacked either. You know, to show your vulnerability, I reckon majority of the time, if you show your vulnerability, it will be received well by the people that you show it to, and you'll be able to talk with people and work through things. So, you know, and a lot of people cover up their vulnerabilities with drink and drugs. You know, people become heroin addicts because they don't want to feel vulnerable. They've experienced lots of, I don't really like using the word negative, but they've experienced a lot of hurt in their life, and they've clung on to pain and that remembering, and then they've decided that they don't want to feel that anymore, rather than just feeling it and appreciating the fact that they are human and they can feel these things, and just feeling it and let it go and working their way through it. They try and numb it so that they don't have to experience it anymore, and it's always going to be there, and it just means your life is not as fulfilled and as fulfilling as it could be. Is that you're going to want to talk again, Miles?
Well, I was thinking of it, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just going to say that vulnerability, not the covering up with drink and drugs and everything like that. I have a lot of experience with that, and you're right. The idea is you have to. It's something that you have to process, and I was taking some notes here. I was going to say it's kind of rather like food. You know, you have to ingest it. It might not be a particularly pleasant food, i.e. vegetables that are healthy, and I'm not a big person on enjoying that. But anyway, you don't want to hold on to that. It needs to go through a process in your body and then pass through. By analogy, you wouldn't want to put a cork up your butt and then you'd die. You can't cork all of your emotions inside of yourself. Otherwise, you will probably have to numb yourself. Otherwise, you'd explode, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, I can really relate to the drink one, because I used to drink quite a lot when I was from about the age of 17 to 23, and but not, and then I got to a point where I didn't even like to go out because I felt too vulnerable to go out on my own without being drunk, because I was so used to being drunk, and it gets used as a social crutch. And that's when I realised that I was using it as a social crutch, that's when I decided not to drink anymore. And I didn't drink for quite a while, and now I'll just have the occasional drink. But I still don't really even like having that, because it just leaves me feeling fucked for quite a few days.
Really?
And it does. I just go a bit, I'm quite full on when I'm a drinker.
Oh.
I like to dance a lot, and
I see.
I've got a lot of energy, and, I wear myself out on quite a few levels a lot of the time. So it's probably best that I don't really drink too much, really. And I don't use it to go out socially anymore. I haven't done that, like I said, since I was 23. But I've also taken a lot of drugs in my life as well when I felt vulnerable. So I've done that as well, which I don't do anymore. Mm-hmm. Some of the most vulnerable times in my life, I've consumed copious amounts of drugs.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that. I can relate to people using drugs and alcohol to not feel vulnerable. But at the end of the day, you still have to work through these things, and you still have to work through these situations in your life, and they're not going to go away. Who wants to spend every single day of their life not here, not in reality? Reality is amazing. I feel so fortunate to be on this earth at this time, and I feel so fortunate to be able to be me and to experience and feel the emotions and the feelings and that I feel. So I don't want to be numbed. I don't want to spend my life numbed. I enjoy experiencing things. I enjoy feeling vulnerable. I enjoy feeling all the emotions and feelings that I can, that I feel. It shows me I'm alive. It shows me that I'm living it. It shows me I'm human, and I'm experiencing all these things that humans experience. And like I said, you need to change the way you look at them. So what if you feel sad for a bit? Who doesn't? Shit happens, like I said, Right. So what? Just experience it. Cry. Express yourself. And let it go.
Joseph Campbell once said, life is a great opera, except that it hurts.
Yeah. Everyone has shit happen to them, don't they? Everyone goes through things. Everyone puts their trust into somebody or something and gets shat upon. Everyone experiences pain, everyone experiences loss, everyone experiences grief, everyone experiences betrayal. We all experience all of these emotions, and it's really sad, I think, if that you feel the need, and you do, numb yourself and stop yourself and prevent yourself from feeling these things. And that's why it's so important to actually begin to understand emotions and begin to understand feelings, and to begin to understand and feel that vulnerability, and to just work your way through it and push your way through it. Be courageous in life. Be strong. Work your way through it. You don't need to shield ourselves. We're strong enough to deal with anything our lives throw at us. Look at some of the things some people have to deal with. I just look at my life and some of the things I've had to deal with. I'm pretty full on at certain points in my life. I have had to deal with quite a few things. But then I look at other people and I think, fucking hell. It's nothing compared to what they're going through.
Right. And oftentimes those people are often happier than you are dealing with a much more minor situation.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
who have, I don't know of any examples personally, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's it's good to feel these things. At least you're alive and you're living and you're human and you're in touch with your emotions and you're in touch with your feelings, and
But what would you say to somebody who wants of life nothing but pleasure? And it's a reasonable thing to assume, I think, as a human being, that pretty much the goal of life is to figure out what pleases you the most and then go and do it. Don't hurt anybody else in the process, of course. If you're helping other people, that's a bonus, but doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And in expecting pleasure out of life, that would lead one to believe that experiencing bad emotions is something that ought to be avoided. Now, you could experience them as they come and go, but you wouldn't want to become some sort of emotional masochist and just get yourself hurt constantly on purpose to experience the... You need a balance of positive and negative in order to, I guess, have a healthy emotional self. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, all emotions come and go, don't they? So I don't think that people on this earth plane really, and not unless there's some sort of yogi or something, I'm not sure. But I'm sure maybe there are some people that feel total love or the whole time or total pleasure. How can you really when you just have to see the suffering that other people are going through in this world? It's. Do you want to say anything, Paul? You put a lot of writing in the text.
I'm practicing my dyslexia. Yeah, I just see things a little bit differently. I don't dispute anything you're saying. I know, and I've been through experimentation with drugs and drink and things like that while I've been here. I wouldn't, to me it's what I opened myself up to, and I don't dispute that I've been abused and I've learned to abuse others, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly. But I always go back, and like I say, this is just for me, to how it began. I'm aware that emotional interaction that I've had in the past affects me right now. But the past doesn't exist. So whatever it is that I'm allowing to affect me emotionally or rule me emotionally, of course, if I deny my emotions, as you say, then I would be able to do this. So yeah, what is it that I'm allowing to manipulate me emotionally now? It's not in the past and it's not in the future. From the way I see it is, those things don't exist. I can't be emotionally in my future or emotionally in my past. Not unless I have secretly invented some time machine and I've been travelling around, So yeah, I just kind of see things a bit different, I think. To me, it's what I have opened myself up to. Did I open myself up to abuse? Yes, I must have done, because I have experienced abuse. If I hadn't have opened myself up to abuse, I would have opened myself up to something else maybe. But it's my experience, personal experience, and I think once we are tricked or led up the path of abuse, it's often very difficult to accept that I am the one who's allowing me to be abused. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. If I don't want to be abused, I stop. If I don't want to abuse anybody else, I can stop. That's just how I get it. I can't really use the past or the future. So
I think that's a very healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah, I understand. I agree with what you're saying as well. And it's just, you can't really, like what you're saying about the past, it's how you hold on to it and remember the past within yourself that affects how you feel about the past in that present moment.
Well, again, I haven't got a past. How can I feel about myself in the past, in the present moment? To me, it just doesn't work.
You have a past in your memory, but the time in the past no longer does exist. But the things that happen to you still affect you, like you said. You having experienced that suffering has made you who you are today. The past doesn't exist. It's just the memory of it having existed.
Oh, well, of course, it's only an illusion of suffering. I wasn't actually suffering at all. That's only an illusion read on through the emotional disempowerment. I wasn't.
Okay.
accepting my emotions at that time. I was being ruled by my emotions at that time.
Okay.
So yeah, I do get, Miles. Like you're saying, like, well, I have a memory of that. No, I haven't got any memory. Why would I need memory? What purpose does memory serve? I mean, I know it's a bit weird.
Consciousness.
It does what?
It enables consciousness. If you had no
presence.
memory, you wouldn't be
No,
conscious.
presence. A presence would enable consciousness, not memory. Presence.
Okay. Well, how long is the present? Is
The
it a
present.
second? Is it a tenth of a second? Is it a millionth of a second? How long is the present?
Infinite.
It's infinite?
Infinite. Now is infinite. Now is always there for every single one of us, wherever we may be, whatever position our perception is in.
But what about at the beginning of space-time, at the Big Bang?
Well, that's also present. It's only because your consciousness is actually thinking within linear time, that's how you've been trained to think. Because of the perceptions of birth being the beginning and death being the end, and that reinforcement through education. Of course, I'm aware of how we are programmed to think in that manner. The way I don't think, you see?
Okay.
It seems to be, I don't know, like I say, it's a bit weird, Miles.
It's very different from how I think, but I can understand your approach.
Yeah.
And, yeah, okay.
Which is weird, when I hear you talking, I can't understand it. I can hear you talking, I hear the words, but it's just like, what? That really? Do you really, you have to go through all that? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, but I'm sure it works for individuals. I'd never tried to say someone should do it the way I do.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
No, the only thing that separates us in the moment is our uniqueness. I think we're identical. Absolutely identical. The experience is identical. We're all on the same experience in exactly this moment, but we're all perceiving it uniquely. That's the only thing that separates us.
I agree.
Whoops, we've just solved the universe, good Miles. Don't tell anybody. Move along swiftly.
Yeah. I just disagree that the present is infinite, but I do think you have a very good point with it. I just can't articulate myself well enough yet. I don't know. I think time does have a beginning and an end, but when the time ends in this universe, time begins in another plane of existence, and vice versa. It's getting into the multiverse theory, which I kind of run with at the moment.
So really, what you're saying is time would be governed by individual perception.
Absolutely.
So I perceive time to be constant.
Yes.
So that means it's now for you, yeah? You're down there.
It's just a matter of how you choose to go about interpreting the evidence of reality we all experience. And since we're all individuals and we're all unique, we're experiencing it differently.
Or how consciousness actually develops or doesn't develop. Maybe what we're actually explaining
it did develop. We have it.
But what we're maybe explaining is a circular motion opposed to a linear motion. Now, although I'm saying, in my perspective, time is constant, it's not linear. I can't go, and the future's gone. It doesn't actually exist. Because when I arrive there tomorrow night, Miles, and when you arrive there, it will be now. Right, it's just a bit of a con, all right? And really,
well, it's kind of like when you're walking on the planet. It's round, but from your perspective, you keep walking in a straight line, and eventually you end up right back where you started.
Well, no, you wouldn't, would you? You'd miss yourself by a number of degrees and just keep going round and round and round, wouldn't you?
I know, but relative to, like, if the Earth wasn't rotating and moving,
Yeah, so although I'm saying, like, time is... for me, it is constant, and I have got no issues with anybody saying for them it's linear, of course. To me, that's an ever-ending cycle. It's not actually linear what they're explaining at all.
And I define time as being change or motion. If nothing's happening, like theoretically, if you went to absolute zero, none of the molecules are moving on any molecular level. If no change is occurring, time doesn't exist then, because nothing changed. So time is change. If you don't have change, then you don't have time.
So
and I think
I don't know. I could argue on the maturity side of that. That's maybe maturity rather than. But yeah. So as I was saying, is it would appear that one is going in a circular, in a straight line. Ones who are perceiving time to be linear, having a beginning, you travel forward towards the end. Of course, my constant time is with those individuals as they transcend through that line of time. It's there all the time. Okay? So, and then like you say, in your scenario, you would reach a point which is the end of your time at your death, and then you would transcend into another field of time where whatever else happens. You see,
technically, the universe would freeze itself to death with expansion.
Well, whatever works for you, Miles. Like I say, within your linear time, and then something else would occur. You see?
It's really more of a cyclical time as opposed to being linear. The idea is it would crunch, explode, expand, contract, crunch, explode, expand, contract, repeat.
People feel vulnerable about time, though, don't they? They feel vulnerable about getting older.
Okay, let me just point just one other point here, because I know it's difficult for people within linear time perception to be able to grasp it. But what direction is the light coming from the sun as it strikes us here on this planet? Is that doing the same as what we are saying? Or is it actually travelling linearly?
It's traveling linearly in every direction away from the sun, evenly.
Exactly, but when it strikes us here, on this planet...
A photon going at the speed of light actually experiences no time.
It would appear that it's travelling towards us, wouldn't it? It's travelling from the sun towards us. That's the way we would perceive it.
And you would perceive it how?
That it's there constantly.
That it's sort of at the sun and hitting the earth simultaneously?
It's pulsating. I would say it's pulsating, but it's a constant. It's not flowing towards us. That's not how I perceive it. I think that perception is brought on through years of very careful manipulation from a very early age within schooling to get us to project ourselves into this place called the future where it's going to be better. Now, to get to this place in the future where we think it's going to be better, we'd have to project ourselves into the past and make it worse. Personally, I think that's an illusion and a delusion. I think there is a lot to deal with in our moment, each and every one of us. I've got things to deal with in our moment, but our consciousnesses elude us from who we are in that moment and tell us we are not capable of solving our own issues. Creating ego, which projects us forward and tells you it's okay, you'll be able to sort it out tomorrow. Therefore, burying this in linear time where you have to die to get back to achieve what you've overlooked. I think that's a fake. I don't think that's real. I think religion and education have led us into a thought patterns where we collectively are creating a delusion of a future. We must therefore be in our past. I'm not in our past. As far as I'm concerned, I do my best to stay focused on myself in the moment, rather than on what may occur. So if you are looking towards a better future, this would immediately tell you you're not actually happy with who you are now. You're not in a conscious state of love. I would agree then on Sarah's earlier shows of releasing whatever it is that you're in resistance to. Whether it be emotional, physical, whatever it is. Whatever your head is telling you, wherever your head is leading to you. Your head is thinking, and it's using memory, then it is not free to change. It's actually doing something. So, you've got to stop it. For the metaphor, I suppose, you have to stop it to allow it to change. Otherwise, it will continue doing the same thing over and over again for thousands of generations, waiting for a better future. It will never occur.
And that's where gratitude comes in, doesn't it, really? Gratitude of how you're feeling now and what you've got now and what you've got around you, I suppose. Instead of worrying about the future or being saddened by the past.
Now, some may say, Sarah, that I am actually suffering from an emotional issue because I'm not prepared to look at the future or the past. Because they don't exist. I'm quite aware that I am still affected by the thought forms that I had in that so-called past. To me, it's oopy. Hang on a minute. If I focus on myself, where am I?
Here, now.
Exactly. Where else could I be?
Nowhere.
Well, how hard is it to find yourself then?
I think you might like this. The philosophy of presentism is philosophical doctrine that only events and entities, and in some versions of presentism, timeless objects or ideas like numbers and sets that occur in the present exist. According to presentism, events and entities that are wholly past or wholly future do not exist at all. I think you might like this, man.
Wow, I wish I could do what you could do, and then I wouldn't have to let all that just popped into my head. But yes, I think, Miles...
On the contrary, you came up with a philosophy that's already been in existence for a while, all on your own without even being aware of it. I give you a lot of props for that, man. That's good.
Oh, I'd also give it to you for being able to confirm that I am actually nuts.
Well, remember, I believe time exists in the past and the future, so I'm big on looking up things and cataloging them into little categories and nice little neat boxes. Sometimes the boxes break and spill into other boxes, but my metaphor still holds.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but from where I am, you're actually travelling in time, Miles.
Yes.
Yes, you're actually using your consciousness to travel back in time. And the UP thing about that is... let's just say for a moment that there isn't any past or future. Right? Okay. Just say for a moment that I am correct.
Right.
Then you would be able to focus from where you are now into the so-called past and project it as the future. Because
it's another plane of existence.
Of course it is. And therefore you would be able to then, from where you are now, look into the past, enter your own presence as a child, and change whatever it was that did get you to open yourself up to abuse in the first place. Because only you could. There's only actually you. And you might not actually consciously remember it. So therefore memory wouldn't serve you. You just have to go off what you needed to know in that moment. Be able to release whatever it was you saw and transcend through your own thought form to the point past, beyond.
Well, I guess the whole, trying to kill my father twice, maybe that wouldn't have happened, or maybe I would have thought that not to be, as I did think at the time, a great idea. So I see where you're going.
Yeah. Something happens to us. I don't know, and I don't know what happened to me, Miles. No more than what I want. Are you with me? I know we can.
I know exactly what happened to me.
Right.
I got really mad. That's what happened to me, and I ran with it.
Yeah, anger is a powerful ally.
That's why I ran with it. I recognized it as being very powerful, and in a state of weakness, I wanted power.
Well, I would look to do whatever led you into the state of weakness. That also then took you down the path of seeking power over whatever it was that had created the weakness in yourself. You see, to me, it's circular logic, which again, is the path.
I could solve that because I perceived my situation to be at the time inevitable. Childhood is something that happens. You can't not be a child in order to become an adult, and I just didn't respond to that very well. The idea of not being in control of yourself and being free to do whatever you want and think however you want. That I had a problem with any kind of situation that dictated that would not be quote unquote acceptable. Does that make any sense?
Of course it does. Of course it does. But can you now see that you're actually using the conscious thoughts that you've developed? Mm-hmm. To speak of the child, And I could, using the analogy I was using with no time, is you've now just done that. You've actually gone back beyond the point and started to use the miles of today, this present, to work into a presence which is miles in the past. Of course, there is no miles in the past.
I could do you one better though. I've actually been documenting my perception of the miles me into the miles of the past for the past 15 years, and I can look at that and study it and see this progression of acceptance and maturity of the inevitable shit that happens in life.
No, I would say that's correct. We're not actually aging, we are maturing.
Or evolving or developing or something like that. Yeah.
Like a cheese or a wine, you know. I mean, collectively, that's what we're doing. I mean, we're not bad. You know, we just haven't matured.
Or at least that's what we're trying to do.
I don't think we've got much choice, man. I don't think we've ever really had a choice, have we? Really?
I guess you're right, yeah.
Go on, Sarah. Excuse me, we went hurtling off, me and Miles, didn't we, down one of the many rabbit holes of consciousness.
I don't know where I was now. Hang on.
I also wanted to say the foreboding joy idea, I think, is related to insecurity in general.
Well, yeah, most of vulnerabilities are related to insecure, isn't it? You're feeling insecure about the future, aren't you? You're feeling insecure about what's going to happen next. You're not really being totally in the present moment.
I would agree with that, yeah. I would agree with that.
And this is like what, this is what I try and encourage people to be, really, is to be in the present moment and to not have any of these emotions and feeling, to experience these feelings and just let them go. But, you know, I was going to get on to dealing with that nearer the end. Because a lot of people do feel vulnerable, and this vulnerability does actually prevent a lot of people from moving forward into their lives, and it prevents a lot of people from sharing themselves, and a lot of people have got a lot of fear and vulnerability around what other people are going to think about them, and whether they're going to be accepted by other people. If they open themselves up to other people, are they then going to get rejected? And a lot of people do have this. And like you've said before, Paul, you do actually need to find out what is causing you to feel these things in the first place. You know, and you need to work through these fears. And I just think the best way to do it is by being in the present moment and not processing it all too much. I personally find, I personally find the more I trust in myself, the more I trust in life, the less likely I am to feel any of these feelings like vulnerability, fear. You know, if you're grounded in the present moment, you're not going to be worrying about the future. You're not going to be worrying about what could happen, what could be. And this is what a lot of these emotions actually are, aren't they? They're actually worrying about the future and not being in the present moment.
John said something, John Armitage, who I know you know pretty well, Sarah, as I do. He once said to me, I think it was John, anyway, somebody who was around John, if not John at the time. If you're processing it, you're thinking about it, it's already happened. So really, there's nothing you can do about it.
Processing is also reliving it, so you're actually...
There's nothing you can do about it.
It's just you're putting yourself through it over and over and over and over and over again, and every time you're putting yourself through something that's you found upsetting or hard to deal with, and you put yourself through it thinking about it in the same way over and over again, you're hurting yourself more and more and more and making yourself recoil more and more and more. And it's important to be able to try and stop these loops that we can get into. I used to be terrible for loops. Especially if somebody had hurt me in some ways, I'd think about it a lot. Sometimes I'd get really angry with them and just constantly think about it, and other times I would be just really hurt, or other times I would just feel very vulnerable about the experiences I've been through. And I do think it's important that we do allow ourselves to feel these emotions. You know, if you are feeling sad in that present moment, then you should allow yourself to feel it. You shouldn't be scared of any emotions, and you shouldn't be scared to express any emotions, and you shouldn't be scared to show people who you truly are, you know, to express yourself. And the more you can talk about these sort of things to people and feel that vulnerability and be courageous enough to work through it, and to express yourself to other people and to put yourself up and out there, you know, the easier these things get, and the more you trust in yourself, and the more you trust in life's experiences and your ability to be able to deal with them and work through them in that present moment. You know, so that's why it's important to understand these emotions and these feelings, and not to be scared of them, but to use them to grow and to evaluate. I think it's important as well to evaluate why you're feeling vulnerable, because sometimes when you are feeling vulnerable, it is because you've put yourself in a vulnerable situation which is going to cause you harm. And so you need to take responsibility for yourself, and you need to take a step back if you do feel like you are putting yourself in harm. And you are putting yourself in a vulnerable position, and you need to take a step back and decide what the best way to proceed forward. And I think as well, a lot of this has got to do with how you feel about yourself, the situations you get into, how much self-worth you have, how much self-love you've got. You know, because the more of these things that you have, the more self-worth and the more self-love, the more you feel that you deserve the good things in life and to be treated well, and the more you're going to treat yourself well, and the more you're going to keep yourself in nice situations, surrounded by nice people who are productive to your life. Or, you know, if you don't have self-worth, you can end up in right messes and tolerate really bad treatment and take it on board in a really bad way, which isn't take it on board like what we're talking about. People take things on board and carry them around for years, don't they? Some things when I look back at, you know, from my past, and they still upset me now to a point, but I allow myself to feel that and I just let it go. I just think it depends on what you're focusing on in that present moment, you know. And if you're focusing on something that's made you sad and you're looking at it from a sad point of view, well, then you're going to feel sad again, aren't you? If you're focusing on something that made you feel vulnerable and you're looking at it from a vulnerable point of view, well, then you're going to feel vulnerable again. You know, so I think the best way to actually deal with these feelings of vulnerability is to stop worrying about the future, is to get grounded in the present moment, to drink lots of water, to look after yourself, to eat well, to have self-worth and to have self-love and to have trust in your decisions and your life and your abilities to work your way through life and life situations. You know, there's no point trying to avoid something if you know, there's no point burying them, because that's when they come back and haunt you, really, isn't it? You know, and you know, putting yourself in that vulnerable position to connect with other people is actually a good thing, to be able to connect with other people. It's important to be able to share with other people, and if we want to live in a society where people are working together and being more honest and a better society and more fairer society, then we need to be aware of each other, and we need to be aware of, you know, of making connections with each other, of working together, but of focusing on sorting your own stuff out, because nobody else can sort your stuff out for you, you know, and not to be scared of any of these feelings that we have. They're not to be feared. Does anyone want to say anything in the last few minutes before I finish up?
No, I'm just apologizing for my computer freezing up on me.
All right. Well, I'd never known. Yeah, so, you know, it's, you know, so basically it's the same tool for every emotion that you have, really, I think, really. It's just being in the moment, trusting yourself, loving yourself, trusting life, and dealing with life, dealing with the things that you need to do, dealing with your past, cutting them ties, and releasing the past and letting it go, and viewing it as an experience rather than as a pain, as pain or vulnerability. Viewing it as an experience, something which you've learnt from, and something that has helped carve you into the person you are today, I suppose. But it's more about really loving yourself, and to get into this position where you are grounded, you are with self-love, and you are with self worth and trust. Well, then your life becomes a lot easier. You know, it's important to be true to yourself. It's important not to be scared to be who you really are, to express yourself. You know, it's important that we all learn to do this. And if you don't, there's even been scientific studies carried out on people that pretend to be other people that aren't authentic, who are too scared to be themselves. People don't feel comfortable around them. And actually, when somebody's pretending to be somebody that they're not, the person who they're talking to, it's been shown that their blood pressure rises. And this could be why you feel uncomfortable around so-called fake people, or people who feel that the need to strive to be something else. And in our society today, there are a lot of people out there striving to be like rich or famous, or like people that they think are famous, rather than because they feel too vulnerable to be themselves. And no one should feel that. We're all beautiful, amazing creatures. We're all unique, and there's only one of all of us, and the world wouldn't be the same if any of us was removed from it. And we should all love ourselves and have enough self-worth to actually be able to express ourselves for who and what we are, and to find our own talents. Okay, thank you everyone for taking part, and thank you all the listeners for listening, and hope you come back next week. Thank you. Bye.
This is not our radio. This is your radio. Darkcity Radio.
Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So if you want the truth, go to
Darkcity Radio.